There's about 100 members of the International Olympic Committee. They're a self-perpetuating aristocracy filled with European princes and royalty, and it is a corruption machine. Numerous members of the IOC are under active criminal investigation right now. Russia has a long-standing state-sponsored doping program, so much so that they've effectively been kicked out of the Olympic system for over a decade. China had 23 swimmers who were found to have used banned substances, yet this was covered up by the World Anti-Doping Agency. 44% of elite track and field athletes admit themselves to using banned substances in the last year, and only 1% get caught.
Dr. Aron D'Souza, thank you for joining our show. You know,
Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course, I have a bunch of kids. One of them is a 23-year-old young man, and I was telling him about that you were going to be on our show today, and he said, "Wow, I would totally watch that enhanced games, definitely over the Olympics." And everybody's doping anyway in the first place. It's kind of a scam. I bet that's a common refrain that you hear all the time from people.
Well, you know, I like to base my arguments not on personal anecdotes, but based on scientific evidence. And according to research commissioned by the International Olympic Committee and the World Anti-Doping Agency, 44% of elite track and field athletes admit themselves to using banned substances in the last year, and only 1% get caught. And according to World Athletics, up to 99% of male athletes have used EPO, which is a banned substance, at some point in their career. So instead of doing it in secret, let's do it all out in the open.
And we know that it's like a dirty little secret, and entire countries are sponsoring doping as well. Was it Russia and China? It's like
Russia has a long-standing state-sponsored doping program, so much so that they've effectively been kicked out of the Olympic system for over a decade. And China had 23 swimmers who were found to have used banned substances, yet this was covered up by the World Anti-Doping Agency as not to offend Chinese sponsors at the last Olympic Games.
So who owns the Olympics? I mean, it's like one of those institutions that's been around. We take it for granted, but we don't really ask like who owns it. Is this a private institution? Who, like, maybe you could.
It is effectively a private institution. So there's about 100 members of the International Olympic Committee, and logically they would be elected by Olympians, but in fact they're not. They are selected by themselves. They're a self-perpetuating aristocracy filled with European princes and royalty, and it is a corruption machine. Numerous members of the IOC are under active criminal investigation right now, and they make FIFA look like like saints.
You know, Layla, we talk on the show a lot about how your online reputation can be used against you, but what if you could take back control?
Guess what?
What?
Erase.com does exactly that.
Are you kidding me?
They're an online reputation management company that is fantastic. They allow you to take back the power and not let the digital world decide what is said about you.
You know, you bring up a good point. Don't let your online past define your future. These folks, they should call the experts at Erase.com because they can help.
Like they helped us?
They sure did.
And because you listen to Erase, if you just type in the promo code ERASED10, you will receive 10% off these amazing services that help you take back your power.
That's a great deal. Reference promo code ERASE10, you can get a 10% discount off their services.
I like it.
Do it now.
Do it now.
And I could understand why they would want to keep the enhanced games from ever seeing the light of day. So what have they done to prevent you from having success with your vision? And maybe share your vision as well. We might as well just share your vision for those who aren't familiar with you and the enhanced games and what you're trying to create.
Yeah, so we are creating a new version of the Olympics, but for the future, one that uses science and technology at its core, in particular allowing performance enhancements so athletes can reach new heights. Usain Bolt's 100-meter world record is 16 years old. The mile world record is 25 years old. And I think that is manifestly disappointing because 25 years ago, we didn't even have an iPhone. And I think that science is marching forward and human performance should march forward. And so the IOC should have tried to fight us a bit harder. We'd announced the concept almost exactly 2 years ago today. And we were a fledgling little startup, right, for a long time there. And if they fought us then, they would have had great success. But however, they ignored us, which is probably a good measure for them. But late last year, the Trump family invested in the Enhanced Games. Donald Trump Jr.'s venture capital fund, 1789, led our Series B. And this has created a political quagmire for the IOC because the LA 28 Olympics are 3 years away and they need the support of the US government. And they're obviously deeply afraid about offending President Trump and his family. So they tend not to cause us much difficulty anymore.
I personally believe in doing whatever it takes so you can be the best, version of yourself. I take supplements. I've peptides are super hot right now. I take a couple of those things. I see no harm in having a competitive athletic events where people are taking things, as long as there's safety involved in it to be the best version of themselves and outperform others. How do you keep the safety going, though? Like dosages?
Yeah, so let's be very clear. The system of drug control that was invented by the International Olympic Committee is about fairness in competition and in the integrity of the competition. It's not about athlete safety. And our system is about athlete safety. So what we do is that every athlete who competes, whether they're natural or enhanced, has to have a full system health checkup before they compete. So that means an echocardiogram, blood work, an MRI, and they have to have ongoing clinical supervision. So we have the most comprehensive scientific apparatus ever assembled in performance medicine. We have a 38-member scientific panel chaired by Professor Dr. Guido Piles, who is the chief doctor of FIFA. Professor George Church from Harvard University, the chairman of genetics, is one of the longest standing members of the advisory panel. And I always emphasize that this is a very rigorous scientific project because ultimately we make money not by selling ticket sales and media rights like a traditional sports property. We make money by selling drugs. We want to bring the next generation of performance medicines to market. We look at drugs like Ozempic and the GLP-1s, which have added $1 trillion to the market capitalization of their owners. And we say, this is the next big opportunity in medicine. Why should we have to go to the gym every day to be strong and healthy? Shouldn't we be able to supplement that with high quality, rigorous, safe performance medicine?
So this show is all about cancellation. Where you had this idea, and at what point did you start to feel some pressure from outsiders, third parties that wanted to make sure that your idea was not going to be successful? When did you first get a whiff of that?
Yes. So for your readers, or your listeners, I should say, who don't know about my background. So I'm a lawyer by training. I have a PhD in intellectual property law, and I have a law degree from the University of Oxford. After Oxford, I led Peter Thiel's litigation against Gawker Media involving the wrestler Hulk Hogan, where we won the largest invasion of privacy judgment in history. I've built 10 companies, including some very successful businesses in funds management and in venture capital. When I launched the Enhanced Games, everyone told me, Aron, you're going to burn your entire professional reputation. No one will ever hire you ever again after announcing something so audacious and so crazy. But I knew that I was burning my professional reputation by launching the Enhanced Games. And I said to my assistant, when we were about to press go on the first press release, that I was torching something that I had worked so hard to develop for 20 years. However, the most instructive conversation I've had in the last decade is with the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Maria Russo. She is a Filipino activist who used social media to fight the dictator Robert Duterte. And she said, to understand the world, you have to understand just one thing, which is social media. To understand social media, you only need to understand one fact, which is that controversy travels 9 times faster than truth. And the ideas that go the most viral are those that are controversial. They're thought-provoking. And so I knew on the 23rd of June, 2023, when we launched the concept of the Enhanced Games, that I was torching my professional reputation. But within 24 hours, I was validated because journalists were starting to reach out. They were starting to ask questions about what we were doing. And then it went viral. 600 news articles within a week. Venture capitalists started lining up to throw money at the project. And every time someone criticized us, it created more attention and more attention that drove more virality, and that has led to the success that we have today. Because ultimately, sports is an attention uh, gathering machine, right? And the more attention we can get, the more validation we have, and the more revenue we generate.
But they're coming after you. You know, it's not even the game so much. They're vilifying you as like maybe dangerous proselytizer or something like that, right? They're coming after you personally. No?
Yes, but ultimately, the reason I picked this market structure to compete in, I'm a professional entrepreneur. I built 10 companies, is because the opposition is undefendable. No one can stand up and say, the International Olympic Committee, they're a bunch of really great people. Like they're really effective at their work. No, they're a bunch of criminals who have bankrupted country and city after city. They've exploited athletes for generation. And it's deeply problematic on so many levels. So, it's not like I was going against, unicorns or public libraries, right? This is a really bad institution and very hard to morally defend. And so, I think of it's like they're the taxi cabs and we're Uber. They're Blockbuster and we're Netflix. And yes, a lot of people love Blockbuster, right? But the taxi cabs, right, were completely undefendable. An entrenched monopoly that was exploitative to the drivers, to citizens, to users. And Uber created something better. That's why they're a $200 billion company today.
Yeah, the Uber example is really apropos. Travis Kavalnik, he was probably perfect for the job. I mean, I know the way he built that company was just brass knuckles, and I think that in hindsight, it probably was exactly what needed to be done.
Yeah, and so I've known Travis for a long time, and I was an advisor to Uber just as they were launching in London, right? So it was the first international expansion. And one thing that was really insightful about the Uber launch was that they loved getting sued. Because every time they got sued, it generated more attention, which caused more downloads of the app, and also associated the Uber name with ride sharing. So city council members and corrupt taxi unionists would come out and say Uber is the worst thing ever, and that just built their brand. And it was a user acquisition strategy. Obviously, Travis didn't admit this till well after the IPO, but he was threatened personally with a 15,000-year prison sentence by the city of New York. And let's think about this. Think about how crazy the idea of Uber is. Like we take it as for granted today, but it was like you used the internet to call a car, and you would literally get in a stranger's car instead of getting into a safe government regulated yellow taxi cab. Airbnb is an even crazier example. Like instead of staying at a wonderful, nice Ritz-Carlton hotel, you'll sleep in someone else's house, maybe even while they're there. Like the idea of Airbnb, in particular for women, is sort of an outrageous concept, and that's how far our culture has shifted. And so, yes, today it may be controversial, the idea of human enhancement, but I think in a few years' time we'll just take it for granted. You walk down Miami Beach, Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, or Fifth Avenue here in New York. Um, Everyone is enhanced, and we are aging differently. And this is just a cultural change that needs to be recognized. And it's one that, of course, I recognize maybe a little bit earlier than most. And now that we're building the games, we're showing that aging is a disease that we can treat, cure, and eventually solve.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with my wife and I actually have a 15,000 square foot wellness clinic in Miami with all kinds of alternative modalities and the latest in stem cells and peptides, and we have a lot of athletes who are coming in and recovering and doing rehab and so on. So and personally, I love this stuff. I think I'm the healthiest that I've ever been in my life. I'm 59. So I'm doing okay.
You look great for 59.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. Yeah, appreciate it. I think it takes a special kind of person to do what you're doing. I mean, Travis, I haven't met Travis, but I can. Some people are up for the fight. I'm also a serial entrepreneur as well, but I'm not cut from the same cloth as you. I'm not a fighter. You went into this the day that you launched, knowing I'm burning the boats and I may have to fight. I may be ruining my career, but I'm up for this. I believe in it so strongly. I think what you're doing actually requires that kind of mentality.
Yeah, and the only causes worth believing in are those worth dying for. And if I, as the leader of this movement, don't 100% believe in what we're doing, then why would anyone else follow? And ultimately, the best companies in the world aren't just businesses designed to make more money. They're missions. And I always say, no one is going to write on their tombstone that they were a product manager at Microsoft. But there will be lots of people who will put the enhanced cross on their tombstone because it is a sign that they believe in human enhancement, that they are willing to take our species to the next level. And so what is our mission?
If they even die.
Yeah, if we die. Yeah, we may not. And ultimately, our mission is to create a world in which everyone has the opportunity to live enhanced, where we can all become superhuman. And I think that is comparable to the mission of OpenAI to make artificial general intelligence, or Elon's mission to make humans interplanetary, right? This is something that is worth dedicating your whole life to. I built companies before. No one is going to dedicate their whole life to building DocuSign or an enterprise SaaS company, right? Work should be meaningful and it should be a joy, and mission is the very core of creating that joy. So,
I don't know if it's a flaw or not. The athletes who are interested in participating in enhanced games, correct me if I'm wrong, their career as a natural athlete is sort of past them, and so they're past their prime, and then they get involved with enhanced games, and in the hopes that they can not only surpass their previous personal best, but actually a world record best.
That's right. And so,
is that an issue?
No, it's not actually, because we've proven that we can take an athlete who is a little past their prime and break a world record. So Christian Golomev of Greece broke the 50 freestyle world record. It's the most important record in swimming. He did this as an enhanced athlete at age 31. That is 10 years past the prime of a competitive swimmer. And he's not just faster than his previous personal best, he's faster than any athlete in human history, beating a record that had stood for 16 years. And so I think the greatest gift that we can give to the world is not a 21-year-old who can run a 10-second 100-meter, but it's rather a 40-year-old or maybe even a 50-year-old who can run faster than Usain Bolt. And imagine what that will do for our society. Because one of the most intractable issues, and the reason why the US government is in such a financial deficit, is because of entitlement spending in Social Security and Medicare. We've increased health spans, we've increased lifespans so dramatically, but the retirement age has not moved. It's been 65 forever, right? It's been 65 since Napoleon, an arbitrary date picked over 300 years ago. And if a 65-year-old could run faster than Usain Bolt, what would that do to our society? It would invite us to introspect, should the idea of being a senior citizen even be a thing anymore? The Golden Girls, for that TV show from the 80s, they were in their 50s.
I know.
Right? They were it's crazy to think about how that was the end of life. The golden era had begun. Yeah. And now we don't even, I won't even consider 50 middle-aged anymore.
Yeah. Do you think the Bobby Kennedy and HHS and his leadership there is helpful to your cause at all politically?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Secretary Kennedy is a huge supporter of human enhancement. He himself is an enhanced human. Mm-hmm. He takes TRT, and that's why he has amazing biceps and can do pull-ups, and is posting videos to his Instagram, working out shirtless. When Joe Biden couldn't even walk up a flight of stairs, or maybe not even was a cognizant human. And that's the promise of performance medicine. Imagine being in your 70s and maybe even into your 80s and still being a productive and extraordinary member of the workforce. And Secretary Kennedy does very much recognize that human enhancements are may even become a necessary part of our medical system, because what does the government want? The government wants citizens who are stronger, more productive, and can pay taxes for longer. And the central way to increase productivity is through human enhancement.
He's a friend of mine. I'm proud to say, and I've been with him in the gym, and he's my hero in so many ways. But his physical fitness is, I mean, he just turned 71, I believe, and he could peel off over 20 fairly clean pull-ups.
It's unbelievable, but at the root of it is hormone optimization. And when the I believe that a multi-trillion-dollar industry is going to rise from human enhancement because healthcare is extractive of all the profits of capitalism. So basically all the activities of our society are profit generative, whether it's banking, technology, or even building schools and freeways. And so where do those profits go? They go to making us healthier. And that's why America, the richest nation in the world, spends 18% of GDP on healthcare. And eventually we'll realize that it's not just about making sick people less sick. Healthcare should also be about making ordinary people extraordinary. Because why should you be old and debilitated at 70, or should you be doing 20 pull-ups? Should we all be able to do 20 pull-ups at 70 like Secretary Kennedy can?
I'm on the same page. I mean, this is like the hottest topic amongst my community is, hey, have you looked into peptides? Hey, have you looked into stem cells? It's like this is like what we're talking about all the time. It's fun. Like this is like it's right now. It's happening right now. Your timing couldn't be better, probably, to talk about peak human performance.
Yeah, I think the convolution of social media, like we would not have been able to pull this off without social media and that distribution mechanism. The Trump administration, the optimism about human enhancement technologies. And in a few years' time, we will all be faster and stronger and younger for longer because there's been, because of the enhanced games. And we will say, why did it take so long? And it will be because there was this corrupt group of Swiss bureaucrats who were using drug control as a way of holding on to their $100 billion monopoly.
The supposedly corrupt institutions like big pharma, big oil, big food, big telco, there's big sport in a way as well. They're huge. I imagine they're huge, international. To go up against big pharma, for example, it's like, forget about it. They're so, institutionalized. How are you going to go against the IOC? They're going to get in the way. They're going to cockblock you, probably, I assume, with network coverage in every which way. What's your plan to? You can only almost predict the tactics that they might use to make sure the Enhanced Games never is successful.
Well, we've politically checkmated them, with the Trump presidency and the fact that the Trump family is investors of ours, that has significantly curtailed one of their strongest levers, which is political. I would say the Olympics are powerful not because they have all the athletes, it's because they have all the politicians. And now we've aligned, the most important political family in the world to our cause. So that's one element of it. Another element is that their success is based on a legacy business model, broadcast television. Our success is based on social media. And I expect that by the end of 2026, we will in fact generate more revenue than the International Olympic Committee, just because we have a better business model. and we're run by smarter people in a new structure. You come to my office, you will see, young graduates from MIT and Berkeley, right? It's their first jobs. It's a tech startup. It is not a legacy, old, politicized, broken system. Yes, they're very powerful, but ask the question, why has no one else done this before? It's a very simple idea. There are lots of very smart people who proposed an enhanced games, most notably the Oxford professor Julian Saporescu. He's a notable bioethicist. But why did no one turn it into a reality? Because at the end of the day, everyone who would have done so probably was in the sports world. They were some kind of sports bureaucrat. That would be the logical kind of person who would start a competitor to the Olympics. I'm not in the sports world at all. I'm a entrepreneur and investor, and I just saw a broken market structure, just as Travis saw with the taxi cabs or Brian Chesky saw with hotels. And it's entirely possible to build something better because we live in the era of disruption.
I agree. And, I was thinking, so you're going to focus on when you launch, it's in Las Vegas next year. Just tell
May 2026.
May 2026. It's going to be swimming, weightlifting, what else?
Track.
And track.
Yeah.
In my opinion, for what it's worth, the weightlifting, I think that's a great area to exploit, because I kind of sense that people who do weightlifting might have already had a lot of experience with performance enhancing stuff in the first place.
Yeah, the power lifters in particular are all enhanced. They love us. There's no hiding that.
So, and it's really fun to watch a world record in weightlifting. I think that, yeah. So if you can tell us about your stable of athletes that have already signed up or expressed interest. How are things shipping up?
Well, the average Olympian in the United States only earns about $30,000 a year. Yet the IOC president flies around the world in a private jet and literally lives in a palace. And so it's a highly unequal system. And that's one of those things, one of the market structure reasons why I thought it was so compelling to disrupt. And so we're offering six-figure base salaries to athletes, $1 million for breaking a major world record. And so the economics are really, really compelling for the athletes. And so they're lining up. We've signed the current world record holder in the 50 butterfly. We have Olympic medalists, world champions. And they see this as a new opportunity to get on the ground floor of changing the world and changing humanity writ large. Because this isn't about creating the next version of the Olympics. This is about creating the next version of mankind, right? We're going to create humans 2.0. And don't you want to be one of the original Apollo astronauts, the first to land on the moon, right? No one wants to be the 100th man who climbed Everest, right? You want to be the first. And it takes that kind of heroic mindset. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die on horseback with a sword in my hand in the midst of battle, right? Because that is a bold and honorable way to go. For all of human history, we have taken great risks to climb mountains, go to the stars, explore the depths of the ocean. Why? Because it shows us that humans are even greater than we could have ever expected. And for athletes, breaking world records is so important. And I would point to the fact that no one watches Formula 2. Everyone watches F1. No one watches minor league ball. Everyone watches major league ball. Why is that? Because human beings were hardwired to want to see only the best compete. And from 1896 until 1992, amateur athletes were the only ones allowed to compete at the Olympics. Professionals were banned. It was seen as ungentlemanly, against the spirit of sport, etc. But it turned out that professional athletes were just a lot better than amateur athletes. And I think the same is going to happen here. We want to see the very best of human competition. Enhanced athletes are going to have longer careers. They're going to be faster. They're going to be stronger. They're going to be higher performing. And who's going to want to then watch the old, slow Olympics? And athletes certainly won't want to compete in a second-tier competition. No one has ever woken up and said, my dream in life is to be a Formula 2 driver. Everyone wants to be a Formula 1 driver, right? And no one's going to say, oh, yeah, I want to compete at the natural Olympics. No, I just want to be the fastest human that has ever existed.
I remember, I don't remember what year it was, but the Olympics basketball, the U.S. assembled a dream team, like
1992, Barcelona.
and it was like beating up a bunch of babies, right? It was like, wasn't even close,
Well, so 1992 in Barcelona was the first year that professional athletes were allowed to compete. And that's why the US had the dream team, because that's where all the professional basketball players were. And they just wiped the floor
Wipe the
with
floor.
absolutely everyone. It was a
Yeah,
joke.
it's a joke.
And it changed the entire structure of sports. And the fact that the NCAA, college athletes today, are allowed to be professional with the NIL rights is a direct consequence of the dream team in 1992.
So along the way, did you lose any friends or family? Did you ever second guess yourself? Like, maybe I made a wrong decision here, you know?
Well, building a startup is hard. And, some days you wake up and you say, wow, I've had to sacrifice a lot for this. But, it is, there have been some immense sacrifices along the way. I had a very successful career as a venture capitalist. I had a beautiful house in London, a Ferrari in the garage, and I probably should be there enjoying the fruits of many decades of work. Instead, I'm working 14 hours a day doing 4 or 5 media interviews and building a whole new organization. But why am I doing this? It's because I don't want to be old, feeble, and disabled. I don't want to age, suffer, and die. And I think I'm better placed to create the market structure where we can significantly cure aging than anyone else. And so if I don't do this, and one day I will be old and I will regret not pursuing this because it will have a direct benefit to myself and my long-term health. And so all the sacrifices that I have to make today, I think are justified for the future me, right? I don't do this for young Aaron. I do this for 70, 80, 90-year-old Aaron, and the potential of human enhancement technology.
I think you're selling yourself short. I'm planning on living to 450. That's my goal. Half jokingly, I don't see why not. And I'm trying to convince my wife to go along, but she says she's only down for 125.
Well, I think we're going to pose some very interesting philosophical questions. I'm sitting here in my library in New York City, and all the books that surround me are about philosophy. And we're going to ask an important question: is what is living? Because right now that is a biological definition, but very soon there will be brain-computer interfaces, artificial intelligence, and you and I have generated so much video content that we could train an LLM to imitate our personalities. Will we live through some kind of online avatar, or will we constantly upgrade our bodies and become some kind of cybernetic transhumanist? And what we are doing at the Enhanced Games is not just creating a sporting event. We're also laying the regulatory and ethical framework for human enhancement. And I would recommend your listeners go to enhance.com and read the Declaration on Human Enhancement, which is our governing document and a set of principles outlining how human enhancement can be ethically brought to life. And I think this then poses a very interesting question about what is the next age of mankind. So it is said today that we live in the information age, but that feels very outdated to me. It feels like Bill Gates, 1980s, a PC on every desk, the information superhighway. And so then I ask the question, what should the next age of mankind be? And I think there are only two options. There's the artificial intelligence age, where the machines become superior to the humans, and eventually us humans become irrelevant and disposable. Or we could live in the enhanced age, an age where technology's sole purpose is to enhance the human condition, to make us physically stronger, mentally more resilient, intellectually super intelligent, and so forth. And I will do everything in my power to make sure that we live in an enhanced age, not an artificial age.
I think about, let's say I do accomplish my goals and I live to 150, 200, and so on. Like, what am I going to do every day? Am I going to work out? I can obtain maximum peak performance. What is my role in life? People are going to be, I think there's going to be a bloodbath on the street with AI, by the way. I think people are going to be laid off by the droves. Like, what's everybody going to do is going to be universal basic income. Is nobody going to be working? Are we just going to be going through life being the best peak physical performance versions of ourselves? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think this set of philosophical questions has been asked many times. There was the thesis of the Luddites in the Victorian era, who were afraid that the machines are going to take all the agricultural jobs, which they did. In 1850, I'd say 60% of Americans worked in agriculture. Today, less than 1% do, but we generate so much more food and could feed the entire world. Why is that? Because technology has made us more productive. And for us knowledge economy workers, we effectively spend 30 years in training, from school to university to early career apprenticeships. But we only really work for like 20, 25 years. And then we're retired for about 30 years. And so the economic productivity benefits of adding just 1 or 2 years, not to the front end of our careers, but to the back end, is immense. That's where we have our highest income earning capabilities, particularly as knowledge workers. And so I don't have a dystopian view of the future. I have quite a utopian one. Because if we look at the US federal budget right now, and I don't know the deficit numbers off my head because they're about to change, but we're talking about, more than $1 trillion a year in federal deficits. But if our society became more productive through human enhancement, pushed out the retirement age by just a few years, we could have a sustainable federal budget. We could have a sustainable European-style welfare state. We could be a society where everyone is rich and no one is poor. And that can be possible by making us as humans physically more productive for longer.
So this criticism that the Enhanced Games is a clown show, you don't have a moment where it sounds like you believe you're doing a service to mankind. Is there ever a moment where you second guess yourself at all?
The job is hard. And sometimes I think, maybe I should be retired and enjoying the fruits of my life. But that's generally when I'm like jet lagged and having to, go to 4 cities in 3 days or something.
We have our
But no,
moments.
I never doubt myself. And, my critics don't have a robust argument. I've invited the president of the International Olympic Committee, the World Anti-Doping Agency, and others to debate me live in person. I'll go anywhere in the world, but they never do because they can't stand the marketplace of ideas. And this is, the sign of our success. Every day they refuse to debate me is another day we gain traction, we generate more revenue, and eventually we will supplant them. And it will just be like Uber, right? Why would we ever take an old-fashioned, outdated, broken taxi cab when there's a better, more efficient option in front of us?
I'm rooting for you in a big way. I really want to see May 2026 happen in a very successful way. Where do you stand right now, and what obstacles do you need to overcome in order to have a successful launch between now and then?
I think we're pretty well set up. We are backed by the biggest investors in the world. Peter Thiel led our Series A. The Trump family led our Series B. We have support from the scientific community. 74% of the Olympics' own doctors say that they will treat an enhanced athlete, according to recent research published in the Journal of Sports Medicine. And I'd like to always, it's not my line, it's actually my assistant Thomas's line. The enhanced games are inevitable. Now that we've laid out the business model, that we've done this, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, it will still happen. And, I do worry at times for my personal safety. I recognize that we're taking on a super corrupt, incumbent monopoly, and they've turned to dirty tricks before. But ultimately, the movement doesn't rely upon me. I've laid the groundwork. We have an amazing team of 30 professionals who go to work every day to make this happen. And so, if someone killed me, the movement would still happen. We will still succeed.
Have you had any kind of threats against yourself that you need to?
Oh, they're crazy people all the time, right? Like, a lot of people say very nasty things about me personally on the internet. But like, it's hard for trolls to get out of their parents' basement and actually take action. So I don't worry at all. I live quite a normal life, and I enjoy the sacrifice that is necessary to build something great. And I think that is an essential criteria of a great entrepreneur. Like, you have to enjoy making sacrifice, because you lose a little bit in the short term, but you gain a lot in the long term.
I'm sure you're familiar with that old famous New York Magazine comic where there's a dog in front of the computer and it says, on the internet, nobody knows your dog, right?
Yeah.
The internet brings out the worst in people. What is maybe some of the worst things that you've heard directed towards you on the internet? Are you able to share?
I just don't think they're very good. It's not even worth repeating. And I've been through the ringer before. I've fought big litigation. I'm a fighter from day one. From the day I graduated from university, I have been fighting. I fought some of the most corrupt and dysfunctional institutions in the world, and I enjoy it because at the end, justice always prevails, and I believe in science. Like, science is truly the greatest leveler. It's the greatest driver of productivity. It's the greatest creator of happiness that has ever existed in human history. And you should never bet against science. And that's what the Olympics have done for 50 years now. They have been openly anti-science, anti-technology, and it would be like universities banning the typewriter, right? If we couldn't use the typewriter, we wouldn't have had computers. If we didn't have computers, we wouldn't have artificial intelligence. And right now, a lot of universities are anti-AI, and they're going to go the way of the dodo because AI is going to become central to our society. I've seen the rise of companies like OpenAI firsthand, we can build the future. And maybe a concluding thought is that the future, everything that exists today, was built by someone. The best example I can give is Eleanor Roosevelt, 1947. She invented the idea of human rights, right? Like, she invented the phrase, and now we consider that such a touchstone of what it means to be human. And so, to your listeners out there, like, you can build the future. No one is stopping you, right? It just takes courage and conviction, and the things that take the most courage are the most valuable.
Well, I appreciate you spending time with us, Dr. Aron D'Souza. On that note, courage and conviction. I am counting on an invitation in May of 2026. I want to be there. I want to be there, and I want to enjoy it and root for some world records, a whole basket of them. And I encourage you to keep going, keep fighting, and I wish you a lot of success.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to having you at the first games.
Thanks so much.